Okay, table 4, and then we have a question from table 10, and we're going to get close, then 25 and 1, and blah, blah, blah.
Hi, my name is Fred Fellman once again with Friends of the Earth in Seattle, and I'd like to thank you all for tolerating a Yank talking at your forum. And however, I studied killer whales and I do maritime work at the Northwest, and so I've had a lot of experience with transboundary critters, and I'm concerned and interested in what goes on up here, in part because I love the region, but also for the downstream potential impacts you might have. Part of Port of Seattle has got a coalition between ports of Seattle, Tacoma, and Vancouver with a clean air initiative that Prince Rupert is not party to. We're concerned that if port expansion is going to occur by dumbing down environmental rules, that's going to take traffic away from certain areas and move it to other areas because they're getting around regulations. That's bad for other folks. So it's important that we know you tug on one thing, it has effects downstream. So that's why I appreciate your indulgence in letting me be here. And Howard Breen, our cohort in Canada, invited me. So I just say that as the introduction. The concern I had was like the vessel traffic aspects of this, and I understand the Marine Working Group is now proposed to be back on again, and I understand there was 2 years ago I got a notice for a study called, I think it was either Termpole or Thermpole. It was a vessel traffic study for the Kitimat route, and I would assume that there's a result of this study out by now, and that I would think it would be an integral component to any Marine Working Group plan, but I have not been in that loop, and I just would like to keep abreast of how that goes. Thank you.
You're wondering what's up with it? Okay. Anyone enlightened?
It's one of those things that are going on at the same time that everybody should know about.
Yeah, and I don't know the answer, but we will get an answer.
Wayne's saying he doesn't know the answer, but we'll get an answer. And if they exchange cards, he'll give them an answer. Okay, great. Thank you. I think table 10 is next, followed by 25. No 10? No 10. So table 25, followed by table 1.
Thank you. My name's Gary Alexey. I represent the community of Kitsim-Kalem. My concern is with PNCIMA, 88,000 square kilometers. What is going to be done, or how are you looking at in defending the watersheds of the Skeena and the Nass River? These are the two primary producing wild salmon rivers, and I'm not sure what you're looking at to help protect that with the expansion of mining and things going on up in the north of us. I think we should look at protecting those watersheds before, as we go on with PNCIMA. With what you're doing at PNCIMA, it looks good. Let's hope it comes out, and that the decision-making process comes from the West Coast, not from Ottawa. Thank you.
Okay. And you're curious about what's going to be done specifically with those two major river systems by way of protection of those stocks. Anyone want to...
Well, I will say that as far as PNCIMA goes, we're starting at the LOMA scale, so the large ocean management scale. But that doesn't mean that we're not doing other work. And yeah, Arnie's going to correct me, which is good. But just to say that DFO and other agencies, First Nations, have other processes which continue to go on. And so we've got, the Fisheries Act, we've got provincial processes. We've got like protections and legislation that continues to be implemented. So if this is a planning question, then I'd say we're starting at the LOMA scale, but there may be some local planning. Do you want to add to it?
All right. Well, I can add to that a bit, okay. Gary. And it's a great example of the capacity challenges and the integration challenges that we really face on the North Coast. There is a Skeena watershed initiative underway. DFO is part of that. The province of BC is part of that. It's kind of similar to PNCIMA, but maybe at a more specific scale. There are a lot of the different stakeholders involved in that Skeena watershed initiative. First Nations are involved, but it's hard. It's really, really hard. How do we as First Nations on the North Coast be in two places at once? How can I be here in Richmond, or how can I be in Prince Rupert talking about PNCIMA but also being in Terrace or Smithers to talk about Skeena watershed. So it's a great question, and it's a really good example of the capacity challenges that we face in the North Coast. So thanks, Gary.
Did you want to respond to that, Arnie? Or?
Just a quick response. I sit on a BC Energy Council, and there's 3 other members and myself, but we also are challenged with mining, because I've heard him mention the word mining, but we have to keep our eyes open on all the connecting activities that take place that feed into the system. So we're a new organization. We're appointed by the Assembly of First Nations, the Summit, and the Union of BC Indian Chiefs. But that's one of our challenges, is to address the mining. I heard him say mining. So that's one of our challenges in that room, and to figure out how we're going to address that. And one of the ways is going to be talking to people like Bruce and people that are affected on the ground floor. Thanks.
Comment down at the end, I think.
And I'll just add one more thing to what Rebecca said in terms of legislation. We have environmental assessment legislation, and there is the duty to consult with First Nations under that process.
Okay.
Yeah, and to add to that too, that for any kind of activities happening in the territory, and that's part of what we look at in terms of the treaty and how legislation or common law is affecting or impacting on First Nations, or in particular those people that are at the table, how they're affecting their rights and title in terms of food, social and ceremonial purposes. So that's one aspect. So there are processes in place, and one of them is that you have that opportunity to provide input into any of those mining or any activity that may impact on your rights and title. So
we have a question that, oh, sorry.